August 15th, 1785. The Palace of Versailles. Behind the gilded gates and crystal chandeliers of the most magnificent court in Europe, a scandal was about to explode that would shake the foundations of the French monarchy. A diamond necklace worth the equivalent of 545 modern-day carats. A forged signature. A cardinal deceived by passion. And at the center of it all, a queen whose name would become synonymous with excess, betrayal, and revolution. But the truth behind Marie Antoinette's scandalous secrets is far more complex than history remembers. This is the story of how affairs, both romantic and political, destroyed an empire and sent a queen to the guillotine. November 2nd, 1755. Vienna, Austria. Maria Antonia Josepha Johanna was born into the powerful Habsburg dynasty, the 15th child of Empress Maria Theresa. From the moment she drew her first breath, this Austrian princess was a political chess piece, destined to be sacrificed on the altar of international diplomacy. Her mother, one of Europe's most formidable rulers, had a singular vision: to cement an alliance between Austria and France, two nations that had been enemies for centuries. At just 14 years old, Maria Antonia was stripped of her Austrian identity. Her teeth were straightened, her posture corrected, her hair restyled. Even her beloved pug dog was left behind. She was transformed, rebranded, renamed Marie Antoinette, the future Queen of France. On May 7th, 1770, she crossed the border on an island in the Rhine River, where she was literally stripped naked in a ceremonial tent and redressed in French garments. Austria's princess died that day. France's future queen was born. On May 16th, 1770, she married Louis Auguste, the Dauphin of France, at the Royal Chapel of Versailles. He was 15, awkward, more interested in hunting and locksmithing than his beautiful bride. The marriage bed, however, remained cold. For 7 agonizing years, the marriage was not consummated. 7 years of whispers, 7 years of humiliation, 7 years of a young woman trapped in a golden cage, desperate for affection, attention, and purpose. To escape her loneliness and the crushing pressure to produce an heir, Marie Antoinette threw herself into the excesses of Versailles. Gambling parties that lasted until dawn, elaborate hairstyles that reached 3 feet high, decorated with ships, gardens, and even bird cages. Gowns that cost the equivalent of a worker's lifetime wages. She created her own private world at the Petit Trianon, a pastoral fantasy where she played shepherdess while real shepherds starved in the French countryside. But it was not just material excess that scandalized the French court. It was who Marie Antoinette chose to surround herself with. In the rigid hierarchy of Versailles, where every gesture was choreographed and every relationship calculated, the queen began to form friendships that would destroy her reputation forever. First came Princess Marie-Thérèse Louise de Savoie-Carignan, known as the Princess de Lamballe. A widow of extraordinary beauty and gentle temperament, she became Marie Antoinette's closest companion. The queen appointed her superintendent of the royal household, showering her with apartments at Versailles, pensions, and constant access to the royal presence. Their intimacy sparked immediate rumors. Were they merely friends, or was there something more? The queen and the princess would walk arm in arm for hours in the gardens. They shared private jokes, exchanged gifts, and Marie Antoinette even had a portrait painted showing them together in matching white muslin gowns. In an age where such displays of female friendship were considered inappropriate for royalty, these actions were political dynamite. Pamphlets began circulating in Paris depicting the Queen in compromising positions with her female companions. The accusations of lesbianism were designed not just to shock, but to delegitimize her entirely. Then came Yolande Martine Gabrielle de Polastron, Duchess de Polignac. If the Princess de Lamballe stirred rumors, the Duchess de Polignac ignited them into an inferno. Marie Antoinette became completely infatuated with this witty, charming, and calculating woman. The Queen granted the Polignac family positions, money, estates, and favors worth millions. The Duchess essentially controlled access to the Queen, deciding who could see her and when. But while Marie Antoinette lavished attention on her favorites, the French people were starving. The treasury was bankrupt from wars and royal excess. Bread prices soared, and every gold coin spent on the Polignac family was another nail in the monarchy's coffin. The people had a new name for their queen, Madame Deficit. Enter Count Hans Axel von Fersen, a Swedish nobleman of extraordinary charm and devastating good looks. He first met Marie Antoinette at a masked ball in 1774, when she was still Dauphine. Their connection was immediate and electric. After years serving abroad, Fersen returned to France in 1778. By then, Marie Antoinette was queen, and Louis XVI had finally consummated their marriage. She had produced an heir, but her heart belonged to another. The affair between Marie Antoinette and Count von Fersen remains one of history's most debated secrets. Did the Queen of France commit adultery? The evidence, while circumstantial, is compelling. Fersen had unlimited access to the Queen's private apartments. They exchanged letters written in code. He spent enormous sums of his own fortune supporting her during the Revolution. And in letters discovered centuries later, Fersen wrote cryptically of belonging entirely to the Queen and references to intimate moments that leave little doubt. One letter in particular, dated 1792, contained a passage where Fersen described having been with the Queen in a way that shocked historians when it was decoded. The original phrase had been censored even by his own family, deemed too scandalous to preserve. Whether physical or merely emotional, this was a love affair that would have catastrophic consequences. But if Marie Antoinette's personal indiscretions damaged her reputation, it was a scandal she had nothing to do with that would deliver the fatal blow. The diamond necklace affair. It began with jewelers Charles-Auguste Böhmer and Paul Bassange, who had spent years creating the most expensive piece of jewelry ever made. A necklace containing 647 diamonds, weighing 2,800 carats. It was valued at 1.6 million livres, the equivalent of nearly $100 million today. The necklace had originally been commissioned by Louis XV for his mistress, Madame du Barry, but the king died before it was finished. Now the jewelers were desperate to sell it. They approached Marie Antoinette multiple times. She refused. She knew the country couldn't afford such extravagance. She even said prophetically, "We have more need of ships than of diamonds." But her refusal wouldn't save her. Enter Jeanne de Valois Saint-Remy, Countess de la Motte. She was a con artist of breathtaking audacity, a woman who claimed royal lineage but lived in poverty. She had somehow befriended Cardinal de Rohan, one of France's most powerful clerics, who harbored his own scandalous secret. He was desperately in love with Queen Marie Antoinette. The cardinal had served as French ambassador to Austria, where he defended Marie Antoinette's mother, Empress Maria Theresa. When Marie Antoinette became queen, she refused to acknowledge him at court. This rejection drove the cardinal to desperation. He would do anything to regain her favor. Jeanne de la Motte saw her opportunity. The Countess began an elaborate con. She forged letters from the Queen to the Cardinal, suggesting that Marie Antoinette was secretly interested in reconciliation. The Cardinal, blinded by hope and desire, believed every word. The correspondence became increasingly intimate. Then came the masterstroke. Jeanne arranged a secret meeting in the gardens of Versailles between the Cardinal and the Queen. On the night of August 11th, 1784, Cardinal de Rohan met what he believed was Queen Marie Antoinette in the Grove of Venus at Versailles. In the darkness, a woman approached him, handed him a rose, and whispered words of forgiveness before fleeing. The Cardinal was convinced. He had no idea he'd just met Nicole Leguay d'Oliva, a prostitute who bore a passing resemblance to the Queen. Before we continue with this extraordinary tale of deception and downfall, if you're captivated by these hidden stories from history, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who loves historical mysteries, and subscribe to Echoes of Hidden Tales. We bring you the scandalous secrets and forgotten truths that shaped our world. Now, let's return to the conspiracy that would topple a throne. With the Cardinal now completely under her control, Jeanne de la Motte moved to the final phase of her scheme. She told the Cardinal that the Queen desperately wanted the diamond necklace, but couldn't purchase it publicly due to France's financial crisis. Would the Cardinal be willing to act as intermediary and guarantee payment on the Queen's behalf? The Cardinal agreed immediately. On February 1st, 1785, Cardinal de Rohan signed a contract guaranteeing payment of 1.6 million livres for the necklace, with a signature he believed was the Queen's, Marie Antoinette de France. It was a forgery. The Queen would never have signed her name that way. Queens of France signed only their first names. But the jewelers, seeing a cardinal's guarantee, handed over the necklace. The Cardinal gave it to Jeanne's husband, believing it was being delivered to the Queen. In reality, Jeanne immediately began breaking up the necklace and selling the diamonds across Europe. For months, the scheme worked perfectly. The jewelers waited for payment. The Cardinal believed the Queen was secretly wearing his gift. Jeanne and her accomplices sold off diamonds in London and Amsterdam, becoming suddenly impossibly wealthy. But in July 1785, the first payment came due. The jewelers went to the Queen directly to thank her for her purchase. Marie Antoinette had no idea what they were talking about. The truth exploded across Versailles like a bomb. The Queen was furious, humiliated, and terrified. Someone had used her name to steal a fortune. Her reputation, already damaged, was about to be annihilated. King Louis XVI, trying to protect his wife, made a catastrophic decision. He had the Cardinal arrested publicly at Versailles on August 15, 1785. In full view of the court, dressed in his ceremonial robes, about to celebrate Mass. The king demanded a trial. He wanted the Cardinal punished for daring to believe the Queen would correspond secretly with him. But the trial would prove to be the greatest mistake of Louis XVI's reign, because in the court of public opinion, the people of France had already made up their minds. They believed the Queen was guilty. The trial began on May 22, 1786, before the Parlement de Paris. The entire nation watched. Cardinal de Rohan claimed he'd been deceived into believing he was serving the Queen. The forged letters were presented. Nicole Leguay d'Oliva testified about impersonating Marie Antoinette in the gardens. Jeanne de la Motte was revealed as the mastermind. The evidence was overwhelming. The Cardinal had been duped. The Queen was innocent. On May 31st, 1786, the verdict was announced. Cardinal de Rohan was acquitted of all charges. The courtroom erupted in cheers. Jeanne de la Motte was found guilty and sentenced to be publicly whipped, branded with a villa for voleuse, thief, and imprisoned for life. But for Marie Antoinette, the acquittal was a devastating defeat. The Parlement's decision implied that it was entirely believable that the Queen would engage in secret correspondence and clandestine meetings. Her reputation was destroyed. The people of France turned against their Queen with a viciousness that shocked even her enemies. Pornographic pamphlets flooded Paris, depicting Marie Antoinette in orgies with men, women, and even her own children. She was called l'Autrichienne, the Austrian woman, a pun that sounded like l'Autrichienne, the other bitch. Every vice, every sexual perversion, every crime was attributed to her. She hadn't stolen the necklace, but in the minds of the French people she might as well have. Her endless spending, her favorites, her Austrian blood, it all made her the perfect scapegoat. Marie Antoinette knew what was coming. As the 1780s progressed, France spiraled toward catastrophe. Failed harvests led to bread shortages. The treasury was bankrupt. The king called the Estates General for the first time in 175 years, and on July 14, 1789, the people of Paris stormed the Bastille. The French Revolution had begun. On October 5, 1789, thousands of Parisian women marched on Versailles, demanding bread and the return of the king to Paris. They invaded the palace, killed guards, and nearly reached the queen's chambers before she escaped through secret passages. The mob paraded the royal family back to Paris the next day, with Marie Antoinette and her children displayed in a carriage surrounded by revolutionaries, carrying the severed heads of her guards on pikes. For 2 years, the royal family lived as prisoners in the Tuileries Palace in Paris. Marie Antoinette desperately sought help from her brother in Austria and plotted escape with Count von Fersen, who risked his life repeatedly to save her. On the night of June 20th, 1791, Fersen engineered an elaborate escape plan. Disguised as a Russian noblewoman's servants, the royal family fled Paris in a heavy carriage. They almost made it. But at Varennes, just miles from the border and safety, they were recognized. A local postmaster named Jean-Baptiste Drouet spotted the king's face from coins and sounded the alarm. The royal family was arrested and returned to Paris in disgrace. The failed escape attempt destroyed any remaining sympathy for Louis XVI. If he was willing to flee to Austria, he was clearly planning to return with foreign armies to crush the revolution. The monarchy was abolished in September 1792. King Louis XVI was tried for treason and executed by guillotine on January 21, 1793. Marie Antoinette was separated from her children and transferred to the Conciergerie prison, a damp, dark cell where she awaited her own trial. The woman who had once worn diamond hairstyles and silk gowns now wore a plain black dress and a white cap. Her hair had turned completely white from stress. Her trial began on October 14, 1793, before the Revolutionary Tribunal. The charges were treason, conspiracy with foreign powers, and even incest with her own son, a lie so vile that it shocked even hardened revolutionaries. Marie Antoinette's response to the incest charge was the only moment in the trial where she showed her old fire. "I appeal to all mothers present." The room fell silent, but the verdict was predetermined. On October 16, 1793, at 12:15 p.m., Marie Antoinette was executed in the Place de la Révolution. She was 37 years old. She walked to the scaffold with dignity, her hands bound behind her back. Her last words, after accidentally stepping on the executioner's foot, were, "Pardon me, sir. I did not do it on purpose." Even at the end, royal manners persisted. Her head fell into the basket. The crowd cheered. The Austrian woman was dead. So what is the truth about Marie Antoinette? Was she the monster revolutionary propaganda portrayed? The callous aristocrat who said, "Let them eat cake," when told peasants had no bread? That quote, by the way, is completely fabricated. There's no evidence she ever said it. Was she the innocent victim, destroyed by circumstances beyond her control? Or was she something more complex? The real Marie Antoinette was a woman who never asked to be queen, thrust into an impossible position at age 14, married to a man who couldn't perform his marital duties for 7 years, constantly criticized and scapegoated for problems that predated her arrival in France. She sought comfort in friendships, romance, and material pleasures, human responses to an inhuman situation. Her greatest crime was not understanding that the world around her was changing, that the old rules no longer applied. Count Axel von Fersen never recovered from her death. He kept a lock of her hair until his own death in 1810, when he was killed by a Swedish mob, another aristocrat destroyed by revolutionary fervor. The Princess de Lamballe met an even more gruesome fate. She was torn apart by a mob in September 1792, her head paraded on a pike beneath Marie Antoinette's prison window. The Duchess de Polignac fled France and died in exile in 1793, supposedly from grief. The diamond necklace that sparked so much scandal was never recovered. The diamonds were sold across Europe and disappeared into private collections. Jeanne de la Motte escaped from prison in 1787 and fled to London, where she published scandalous memoirs claiming she'd had an affair with the Cardinal and that Marie Antoinette was guilty of everything. She died in 1791, falling or jumping from a window while fleeing creditors. The Palace of Versailles, once the center of European culture and power, was stripped of its furniture and treasures during the Revolution. The Hall of Mirrors, where Marie Antoinette once danced until dawn, stood empty and silent. The gardens where she played shepherdess grew wild. The glittering world she'd known was gone, swept away by forces that neither she nor anyone else could control. Marie Antoinette's body was thrown into an unmarked grave. In 1815, after Napoleon's defeat and the restoration of the monarchy, her remains were exhumed and reburied in the Basilica of Saint-Denis alongside her husband. Today, tourists visit Versailles by the millions, walking through the same halls where she plotted escapes with her Swedish lover, the same gardens where a cardinal was fooled by a prostitute in the dark, the same palace that became her prison before it became her monument. The scandal of the diamond necklace seems almost quaint now. A jewelry theft, a con artist, a gullible cardinal. But in 1785, it was a revelation of everything wrong with the monarchy: corruption, excess, delusion, and a ruling class so disconnected from reality that a cardinal could believe the queen would meet him secretly in the dark. The affair didn't cause the French Revolution, but it was the moment when the spell was broken, when the majesty and mystery of royalty collapsed into farce. Marie Antoinette's real scandal wasn't the diamond necklace she never stole, or even the affairs she probably did have. Her real scandal was being herself in an age that was done with queens. She was the last woman to rule Versailles, the last to live the fantasy that had sustained French royalty for a century. After her, France would have emperors, presidents, and republics, but never again a queen. The affair that sparked a revolution wasn't just about diamonds, forgeries, or forbidden love. It was about the moment when the old world met the new, when privilege collided with poverty, when secrets became impossible to keep. Marie Antoinette lived and died at that collision point. She was crushed by it, and in her destruction, a new world was born. One where queens could be questioned, monarchies could fall, and hidden tales like hers would echo through the centuries. Thank you for watching this episode of Echoes of Hidden Tales. If you enjoyed this journey into Marie Antoinette's scandalous secrets, please like this video, share it, and subscribe for more forgotten stories from history. In the comments below, tell us, do you think Marie Antoinette deserved her fate, or was she a scapegoat for France's failures? Until next time, keep listening for the echoes of hidden tales.